Hi everyone, this is my JudoBot build video. This is running at 4x speed. It took me roughly an hour and a half to build the entire thing from start to finish. I've never done it before. I was working off the same PDF instructions that all of you are. So first I'm using some tongue depressors. First step is to make an H-shaped base and then to put a 3/4 inch wooden cube with a hole in it in the center. You should also have handy your multi-cutters, hot glue gun, the computer for instructions, dowel, and measuring tape. So this is the center column spindle. It's 8 inches long. Now I'm going to make the column. The column consists of 2 cubes with holes in them and 4 tongue depressors, 1 on each side. This is what makes the central rotating column of the JudoBot. You don't need a ton of glue, just a dab on the ends and hold it in place. This should fit smoothly and rotate smoothly on the spindle. I'm going to get a washer. It's a 1-inch washer with a 1/4 inch hole that provides a little separation on the bottom so there's less friction. Now I'm going to cut one in half. I show the camera here in a second, but it's hard to see the number. In order to cut a tongue depressor in half, the halfway point is at the 2 15/16 inches mark. That's what I'm showing you there. Clip it, and then these go back. These form the arm to which the, and this is a crocodile. I'm showing you how to lock it and unlock it. And the center jaws are not where you actually use it to punch the hole. You use the 2 little arms on the side. So this little arm that reaches back is what the syringe that rotates the column is going to ultimately be attached to. Take a second to line it up. And then I wrap the top with a little masking tape. That's kind of the technique they use in this design to prevent it from slipping through the hole. Ultimately, I'm going to clip that off as well at about halfway through the thickness of the tape. So I punch one of these holes and then I actually use it to trace to get the position the same on 3 other of the tongue depressors. And then I'm punching one of the larger of the 2 holes that can be punched with the crocodile. So I'm measuring 2 inches down from the top because that's what the instructions say, that they should protrude 2 inches above the top of the bottom part of that 4-sided column. And I actually do this wrong. I put them all the way around. That is a mistake. You only need those 2. But then I keep going. And as you'll see in a second, I show the very valuable technique of learning how to undo hot glue with rubbing alcohol. I inspect it, realize, oops, I did that wrong. I will go get some alcohol. And I just put it down so it sort of seeps underneath the glue and it peels off pretty easily. Get those 2 sides. You only really need 2 sides here because you're building a hinge for the upper part of the arm assembly. Those holes also need to be reamed out. I found that the best way to do it was with a Dremel tool with a small conical sanding bit. It kind of makes the holes perfectly sized so that the dowels we use rotate freely within them. So this is creating the upper part of that hinge. This is a 4-sided arm, and This is the part to which the syringe will be attached, and it moves it up and down away from the surface of the table and up into the air. I just made a note to myself, the start time. This whole process took about an hour and a half to build it and to tweak it to get it into motion. So that's the Dremel. Use safety glasses and Dremel out those holes so that a dowel fits through. Now the hinge has been established. Same technique with the masking tape, wrapping the ends, and then I'll clip it so it's short. This is so it does not slip through the holes in the hinge and makes a permanent hinge joint. Don't use those. They don't get in close enough. That's the one you use. Use the Irwin wire cutters. They have a lot of leverage and they can get in close to the side. So that's basically how it is. I decided to wrap a little more tape on there. I ultimately end up undoing that tape because I think it does not sit very well. This is me thinking. Okay, this is building out the base a little bit. These instructions are in there. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of these two on-edge tongue depressors are. Maybe that's kind of provides a recess for the tubing that comes off the upper syringe. Gives it a place to live. I'm measuring here to make sure that the base is within 10 inches in length. As a result, I end up kind of having to go back on this, and the base is somewhat asymmetrical as a result. You definitely do not have to do it exactly like mine. Mine is a perfect example of a good enough project. It is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, as you will see as we go further. The trapezoidal shape has pluses and minuses. A little further on in the video, you will notice that I actually kind of take the base apart because it sits too far forward on the base. As the arm is made longer, it has a tendency to tip forward because it is way too far forward on this trapezoidal base. The other thing I'm noticing is that this is the point at which I'm going to undo the tape and make a hole using the drill through the bottom. This is because I want the bottom of the column spindle right there to, so I unwrap the tape. I want it to go all the way through the cube with the hole in it and through the bottom popsicle stick. There's nothing really holding it in place except for gravity, but it definitely felt like a more secure fit. This is another mistake. You don't have to use glue to hold these syringe adapters on the plunger of the syringe. There's a little ledge in there. Yep. And if you push it in far enough, you'll hear a click, and it is plenty secure. You do not need to use glue. So in order to install this on the base, what you want to do is put it at 90 degrees to that rotator arm that sticks off the back of the column. And you want that to be at the 5 milliliter mark. The plunger should be at 5 milliliters. Yep, that's what I'm pointing out. Because sticking straight ahead should be the middle of the range. That lets you turn to the left and to the right. I go grab some duct tape, and you it's okay if this sticks outside the 10-inch region, the footprint. So you want to tape it down securely, but it should also be able to twist side to side. It shouldn't be held down so stiffly that the syringe doesn't have some room to kind of wiggle around a little bit, because as you'll notice as you do this, as the plunger goes in and out, it doesn't just stay in a perfect line, it tilts in place. So you should build in that wiggle room. This is also why you're not gluing down the syringe to the base. It has to have a little bit of give to it. So this is a pneumatic system. I didn't put any water in the lines yet. Setting up the second syringe. So a lot of this happens in an angle that is a little hard to view from above. But basically this is the second of the two syringes. I also grabbed some zip ties. So this mounts to the front of the spinning column with the adapter and the plunger facing up and the spout of the syringe facing down towards the desk. Yep, and it sits over top right here. It takes a little thought, and this was my first iteration where I was thinking, oh, I'm going to zip tie it, but the zip tie kind of moves around too much. I didn't like the way it was sort of sloppy in the way that it handled that top part of the lever. So I end up clipping those away and actually make a little mount here, similar to the lower arm, the one that works with the lower syringe. I kind of use the same 2 half sticks, punch a hole in the end, and I glue it in place. And then I make an actual legitimate hinge with the dowel going through the holes. At some point you'll see a side view of this. There's the hole, I Dremel them out. Slide the dowel through and do the tape. Tape on both sides, spin it. Just enough thickness so it's not going to go anywhere. Then I rig the bottom tube up to the vertical syringe and test it with just some air. There's some left and right, and there's some up and down. So we have both actions happening here. So, proof of concept, the basic parts work. Now I go and start creating the arm. So this one, in order to conserve blocks, which I didn't really have to do, but I chose to, I make these 4-sided arm segments with a block in the center, and I glue them end to end. This was a little challenging. Probably wouldn't have done it that exact way. You can see that it kind of like strains this. Yeah, it works better to kind of just build it out from the end. Just have to be really careful not to burn your hand, because what ends up happening is you put the supporting cube on the inside after all 4 are in place. That wasn't such a great idea. I would probably put it in right now with 2 in place and 2 yet to be glued. That way you have less of a risk of getting hot glue on your hands. And so I kind of shove it in there and then put the bottom one in place. And then at the very end, I now am going to experiment. Took me a while to think about this, but what I ended up doing is I took 3 of the 3/4 inch cubes, put one in the middle of that arm assembly, and then put one on either side of it. So it ends up with sort of a sideways hammer looking thing on the end. This is a place for you to really get creative and think of what you think would be the best end tool to help you unbalance the other JudoBots that are out there. Mine, I basically made these 2 tusks that go on the end of these. I gave them a slight angle, and my strategy was going to be, since my arm is very good at lifting upwards, my vision was that I will use those to hook into the arm or other parts. So as you can see, it kind of falls forward. But I have a very simple, fairly lightweight gripper at the end with those 2 tusks. This is where I start messing with the 2 things. I mount the up-down syringe on the front of the column, and I also hold it, and I use the 2 1/2-inch cubes with holes in them. See, it tips forward. The weight of the arm was really too heavy for the base. So this is where I kind of... So this is now the final version on the JudoBot board. You can see the base is a little bit different. And I'm going to zoom in to the front view of the lifter. So this is the view of it. You can see the mounting assembly on the arm and the 2 zip ties. So lifting up, I have 2 controls in my hands, side to side. You can see it kind of lifts off the ground. That is not ideal. I still need to do some stabilization there. But yeah, it gets really high. That is one of the advantages. But the instability is not an advantage. Okay, this is the method for filling up your hydraulic system with a minimum of air bubbles. First of all, you take off the tube. I'm assuming probably you have one of these that is attached, the other one's that's not. So I'm going to first fill the tube fully with water. That's your first step. Put it on the end of the syringe and then put it in the water. Make sure this syringe is at 0. Withdraw the syringe. And right now you're going to leave the syringe attached. You should have sort of minimal air bubble at the top. And you can adjust it by pushing on this to get the air so the water is just slightly overflowing. That's how you minimize it. And you're going to let it go to the bottom. You're going to get a little more air. Again, adjust it so it's as close to the top as possible. And it's going to bounce up and down on you a little bit. Oh, then I got too much water out. Takes a gentle touch. Get it right to the edge. Okay, then you're going to affix it to the follower cylinder with the follower cylinder's plunger at 0. Push and twist, get it on there as tightly as you can. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to take this, you're going to keep it up high above the level of the follower cylinder. You're going to detach it because you were using it kind of as a cork. Now you're going to use it as an actual cylinder. Empty it to 0. Fill it to 10 to the point where it stops. Then push it on here. Push and twist. And so now you should have a system where it is as full as it possibly can be. And so you should get really good responsiveness. There's still a little bit of air in that system. That's a little bit inevitable, but periodically, if you bring this all the way to the bottom, you can open this up like that and use the dropper that is around the sink area to add a couple extra milliliters of water and then reseal the system. and that way you can get kind of maximum. You don't want to put too much water in there, because if you push this lead cylinder too hard, it may have more volume in it than this follower can accommodate, so it may actually pop that out, which is not what you want. Okay, and so now it should work pretty well. All right, good luck with that.